Welcome to this video. This one's about building a standard estimate. For those of you who haven't watched any of the other videos and maybe jumped right to this one to see how LMN estimates, we're going to be talking about some things that you may not understand yet. Estimate statuses, terms and conditions, templates, items from your catalog. It's a really good idea to go back and watch some of those other videos first. But if you just want to see how estimates work in LMN, by all means join us. If you're trying to learn how to estimate, you certainly want to watch some of those previous videos before you get to this one so that you have the building blocks in place to use everything. As well, this video is just going to cover the basics of estimating. There are lots of other videos going through advanced tools. And don't let the word advanced fool you. It doesn't mean complicated. Advanced tools are just other things you can do with estimates, but I promise you they'll make estimating way faster if you get into some of those tools. They're easy to learn. Once you use them once or twice, you'll be a master. No big deal. Highly, highly recommend you watch those advanced videos after you get your head around the basics. And the basics is what's going to be in this video. The first basic we're going to cover is what's this thing called standard estimates? And why does LMN have two types of estimates in the menu, standard and service? Standard estimates are for design, build, install, enhancement type work. We go in, we do a task, and we're done. Anything like building a driveway, building a garden, planting a garden, installing mulch, that would typically be a standard estimate. We're going to go do that thing one time and then we're done. A service estimate is going to be something like maintenance, like mowing. We're going to go back 29 times and we're going to do this over and over and over again. So if it's an estimate that requires a recurring service, we want to use a service type. This video here is not about those estimates. It's about standard estimates. Design, build, install, anything we're going to go in, do once and get out, like doing a deck or doing a driveway or anything like that. Let's take a look at now how to build your first standard estimate. So if you're on the standard estimate screen, we're going to go up here to the top right to the new button, and we'll click that. The first thing we need to do is pick the lead or the customer out of our CRM, because we want to associate this estimate with a lead or customer in LMN. It has to be, actually. So you have two options here. Either the lead is already in your system, and hopefully it would be like that, or you want to create a new lead, i.e. the lead has never been in your system, it's the first time. Now, typically, the lead will already be in your system. By the time you get to an estimate, you've probably already taken a phone call from the lead or met them in person or whatever, so they should already be in your system. If they're not, you click the new button here, and it's going to create a new contact or a new CRM record for you. So we'll simply enter their name and city and state and all that information. It'll create a new lead in CRM, and you can continue with the estimating process. But assuming you've already got the lead in your system, you just search for them. So let's say I'm doing an estimate for the Ralston residence. So I'll type ROL and hit search, and they'll come up. You can search by address or customer name. I'll click the select button now to pick them as my lead. Now this side should show you the lead or customer information. And if your lead or customer has multiple job sites, all their job sites will show here. So if you're working with, say, a commercial customer who's got multiple job sites, make sure you pick the correct job site. The address of that job site will show right here. Now on the right-hand side, you've got division, you got project name, you got salesperson, and you got estimator. The division is the division for this estimate. You may want to change that. The project name is the name is going to be given to this estimate. I like to make sure the address is part of our project name and maybe the division as well. Addresses are helpful because it's always a unique address. Names like Smith residence or Jones residence, not unique. We might have 10 Smiths in our database. So it's hard to call it like the Smith backyard. Well, which Smith? Whereas if we name it with an address, it's a lot clearer as to who it is. Then we've got a salesperson or an estimator. So by default, these will turn to you as a user, but I can flip these if I want to. If you made a mistake with the lead customer here, you can use the change button. You can reset it. Or if the Ralston residence was adding another job site or another contact person, I can use the plus buttons to add those right on the fly here. But chances are you'll already have that in your CRM. So now we're going to go down here to OK to move to the next step. Welcome to the estimating screen. First thing I like to do is get this menu out of the way. It just takes up extra space. And when I'm estimating, I like to see as much as possible. So I'm going to go up to here and see these three lines up here. I'm going to click that. That's just going to hide or show LMN's main menu. We'll get rid of that for now. I don't need it while I'm actually building an estimate, and I can always get it back just by doing that. So now I'm on the main screen. There's my project name up at the top, and here's my details. I've got project name. I have an estimate ID, which is a unique number that LMN will generate for you. a version number in case you have multiple versions of this estimate. Right now, we'll just leave it at blank. The date, which is the date the estimate was started. You can change that date if you want. The division and the status. If you haven't watched the estimate status videos, these will manage your sales pipeline. So you're going to be able to see how much work you have at each estimate status in the pipeline. So you can watch the estimate status video to see how to set that up, but here's where I'm going to set what stage of the pipeline this estimate is in. This is a neat little tool, exclude from stats. So what this will do is exclude this estimate from our win-loss close rate stats. Well, why would you want to do that? Let's say I have 3 different versions of the same job as 3 different estimates, because I'm not sure which one the client's going to go for. What I can do is exclude 2 of them from the stats, because I don't want my sales potential to appear 3 times as big as it actually is. That's why that button's there. It'll actually exclude that. So if I'm doing multiple versions of an estimate for a client, I'm going to exclude all but one of them. That way I don't overstate my sales perspectives. The right-hand side, client information. This will be all the information about the client. If you click the client name here, it's going to open that client in the CRM. I'm just not going to do that right now. I'm going to keep working with the estimate. But if I wanted to jump to the client in CRM, I just click that, save my changes, it'll jump me there. All the client's information, including billing and job site information, will be there, as well as these handy buttons. The Measure Site button will open Google Maps to a map of the site, where then I can start clicking on the map and measure an area right there from my desk. The map site will simply generate a Google map. Handy if I'm just going to hand somebody a map, maybe a delivery driver or something. Here, go here. Just a quick Google map to get there. And then if I've made a mistake, or perhaps the job site or client name needs to change, if I click this Change Client Job Site, I have the opportunity to change the client or the job site for this job. Typically, you don't use that very often, but when you get into saving estimates as templates, where you can sort of save a template and then just switch the client, it'll become really handy. Cover that in another video. Down here, you're assigning this estimate to a salesperson, to an estimator, and then you're assigning a confidence level. Maybe I think we're 40% chance of winning this bid, so maybe not very good, or maybe 90% chance of winning this bid. I think it's excellent. And then over here, it'll track who last updated it. Let's get to the important stuff now, actually building the price. So that's under the Work Areas and Pricing tab. In your estimate screen, you're going to see a bunch of tabs at the top: Customer Info, Work Areas and Pricing, Client Notes, Crew Notes, etc., etc. We're on the Work Areas and Pricing tab right now. Here's going to show you which budget you're using. So by default, it's going to use your default budget. This is really important, super important here, because it's going to determine the markups that you're using. If you want to see the markups for this budget, you click the Edit button. And not only could you change the budget if you wanted to, but it's going to show you all the overhead markups that it's using. Now, those overhead markups are being pulled from the budget that you've picked there. Chances are this is fine, you don't need to touch it. But if you ever did want to change it or tweak the markups for a particular bid, that's how to do that. We'll cover that in an advanced video later on. And then there's some summary statistics up here. We just really want to focus on getting to a price, so let's do that. Let's quickly build an estimate for a garden category. The thing you need to do is create a subcategory on your estimate, or a subtotal for the garden. Typically, when we build an estimate for clients, we're going to break it down. Prices for the garden, prices for the deck, price for the irrigation system, however many subtotals we want. A subtotal in LMN is called a work area. So the first thing I need to add is a work area. So I'm going to click that, add a work area. Now I'm going to call this work area backyard garden, or whatever it is I'm estimating. I also have a chance to add an ID if your client has ID numbers, especially when you work with commercial cities or architects, and they may have a number for the bid line item. You could use that there, but you don't need it. Cost code will determine where this revenue gets booked in QuickBooks. So I want any revenue or costs for the garden to go to my installation division. So I'm going to pick my installation cost code. And then if I want to make any notes, I can do that here as well. We're just going to skip that for the time being. So we'll click OK. Great, you've created your first subtotal category, backyard garden. No price on it yet because we don't have anything in it. So what you can't do in LMN is just set a price, because that doesn't make any sense. How do we know how many hours or how much overhead or what materials you need? So the first thing I need to do to build a price for my garden is to go add items and templates. What that's going to do is bring in a menu from the right-hand side of your screen. And that's going to show you all the things you've set up in your item catalog. So here I am on the labor tab. The crews that I set up in my item catalog are going to show up here. So for my backyard garden, I'm going to need an installation crew to install that. So I'm going to find the installation crew in the list. There it is at the top. And I'm going to click the plus button. And that's going to flip that installation crew into my bid. I deal with the hours later. I like to add everything first and then do the hour. You can do it either way. I like to add everything first and then I'll set my hours and quantities later. So what else does an installation crew need to do a garden? Well, we need a way to get to the site. We need some equipment while we're there. So I'm going to click the equipment tab. Now, my crew has got a crew truck and install trailer. So I'm going to click the plus button beside that. And let's say they also have a mini X on site to do the excavation for that garden. So I'm going to look down here to the mini X and I'm going to drop that in as well. Great, now we've got our equipment onto the materials. Back up here to this tab where we're going to click materials. Now what do we need for a garden? Well, maybe I'll have some fill to go out. So I'll do a search for fill. Up here at the top of your estimate catalog, you've got a search button. So I can do a search for fill and it brings back the things that have fill in it. So there's my disposal bin clean fill. I'm going to grab one of those. Let's say I'm going to get rid of it with a disposal bin. Now, what else are we going to need for a garden? Well, I'm going to need topsoil or planting soil more accurately. So I'll do a search for soil and there's my triple mix garden soil. So I'll add that in. What else would we need? Well, plants. So the next thing we could do is do a search for plants. I'm going to look up my category for plants and I'm going to find shrubs, for example. There would be a list of all the shrubs I have in my system. Probably a lot easier when you're looking for plants to actually search for the plant itself. So I'm going to look for HYD and it'll get all my hydrangeas. So let's say I've got a bunch of these 2-gallon hydrangeas here, and we're also going to do some burning bush. So I'll add that in there. And I would continue to add all the plants that I would need in the garden. We'll leave it for there for the time being. Once I'm done adding my items, I like to get this out of the way. Just give me more room to work with my estimate. So to get this panel out of the way, I just click the X here. Of course, you can bring that panel back at any time just by clicking the Add Items and Templates button again, and we're back to that panel again. Now that I've gotten the panel out of the way, you can see a lot more details for each item. Every item has a quantity, units, a cost, a price, profit, etc. All these things are already set up for you because they came from your item catalog. So here I could say, well, I think it's going to take 3 people 1 day to do this garden. So if we're working 8-hour days, 3 people times 8 hours is 24 man hours. So that's what I'm going to put in there. Now for the crew truck and the trailer, if I'm measuring it in hours, I need 8 hours. If I was measuring this in days, I could have just left it at 1 day. But in this case, it's measured by the hour. So I have to add 8 hours. Remember, it's not 24 hours because I don't need a crew truck for all 3 people. I have 3 people, so 3 times 8 man hours, and I have 1 crew truck, 8 man hours. Unless, of course, everybody comes in their own truck, which I don't think is the case. We also need 1 mini X, so I'm going to put 8 hours there as well, 1 day of a mini X. We'll say we need 1 disposal bin, and then let's say we need 15 yards of garden soil, and then I have 23 of these hydrangeas, 12 of these hydrangeas, and 8 burning bush. And now I've got my estimate for this garden. Each item has a quantity, a cost, a price, a profit margin, total cost, and total price. I can change anything I want on this screen. Let's say, for example, we have to pay more for the burning bush at this property because it's more expensive at a nursery nearby, or we couldn't find it at our normal one. Easy. Just go to your unit cost, change this from 14, maybe we got to pay $17.50 at this place. So I update it to $17.50. Notice my price automatically adjusts. It's already built to recover your overhead and a 35% profit margin on this burning bush. So it automatically adjusted the price for me. All I had to do was change the cost. You can do that for any one of your costs, or you can do that for any one of your price. Maybe the cost stays the same, but I just want to jack the price up or down. No problem. I hit the pencil. I can say, let's set that to 25, and it'll recalculate the profit margin for me based on the price of 25. Notice here that as I'm changing things, these green pencils are turning to blue buttons. The blue buttons let me know what's overridden from my defaults. So if I have default pricing right straight out of my budget, it looks like this. Nothing's changed. But if I've overridden the profit margin or overridden the price, I'll get that little blue button there letting me know what's changed. So now I've got a total cost, a total price. I'm ready to go. What if you wanted to add an item though that wasn't in your items catalog? No problem. Let's say we needed a plant. We've never done this plant before. We didn't have it. Here's how to add it. Go over here to add items and templates. Go to materials. Now let's say you do a search for the plant. You can't find it. You don't have it in your system. You don't have to stop and go back to your item catalog. You can just go up here and hit new. So we'll hit the new button. All right, so as part of this garden we're estimating, we need to add a viburnum that we've never used before. So I can quickly add this on the fly. Set all my settings, put this to each. We'll say this viburnum's $22. We'll mark it up at a custom profit margin of 35%, just like our other plants. So great, I've got the basic information in here. Now, if I want to add it to the estimate and not add it back to my catalog, so for other estimates in the future, I'll just click Add to Estimate. It'll just stick this line item in the estimate. But in the case of adding a plant that I might use again, I'm going to do this one, Save to Catalog and Add to Estimate. What that's going to do is add that plant to my estimate and save it to the catalog, so in the future, I'll have it. So now I add 3 of those, and we've got that estimate as well. Close that down, and there I've got that all set up for me. Now, the other thing you can do with the new item there on the fly is to create budget items for things. Let's say, for example, I wanted to put some annuals in this garden as well, but I didn't want to pick every single annual. I just want to create a line item budget. We don't have to have it down to every single material. It's certainly better for ordering and operations, but you don't have to do it. So I'm going to go Add Items and Templates, and I'm going to go Material. This time I'm going to go New, and I'm going to say Annuals Budget. Now over here, we're going to say, let's say we're going to budget for $250 worth of annuals in this garden. I could add my shipping, my warranty, do my profit margin, whatever I want. So it comes up with a price for me. And this time I'm just going to add to the estimate. I wouldn't want this annuals budget saved in my catalog. This is for this one specific job. So I'll just go Add to Estimate. And there's the simple way of estimating. So it's definitely not as good as having a material by material sort of breakdown, because this really helps me order and stage everything and lets my foreman know exactly how many of exactly what materials we need. But if I did just want a quick and dirty number at something, very easy to just put something in like that. Just add something new, annuals budget, lumber budget, planting budget. You could do your whole planting that way, lighting budget, and just drop it in there with a total cost and a total price. And at least I can get this price out the door. Eventually I'll have to figure out what it is I'm adding, but it makes estimating fairly simple. Great. When you're done your backyard garden, you go up here to close, and you can see here I've got hours, costs, price, profit margin, all good. Now let's say that budget or this client also wants a patio. We'll go Add Work Area. We're going to go Backyard Patio. Click OK. And now we're going to repeat the exact same steps for the patio. It's just different stuff. So we're going to go Add Items and Templates. This time, instead of adding the items one by one, I'll go to the Templates menu, and I'm just going to pick my paver patio template. Everything I need to think about for my patio just got dropped in my estimate. I'll get this out of the way again. Now I'd go through here and set my quantities. So I'd take this down, say that, say 2 days. Anyway, I'd go through all these quantities until I have a price for the backyard patio. Close that when I'm done. And what you can see here is now I have 2 work areas, 1 patio, 1 garden. So my client will get a price for the patio, and will also get a price for the garden and any other work areas I add to this estimate. So it gives a client a subtotal for each one. What else have you got for estimates? Well, lots of handy features that make estimating faster. And we'll cover those in the estimating videos with more advanced topics. Sticking to the basics though, you can see all my numbers at the top, show me where I'm at with the estimate. I can go to Client Notes, and here's where I could enter notes for the client to show up on their proposal. So under the backyard patio, you'll see I already have notes. How did they get there? Well, I brought them in from my template. So any notes I'd set up in my template automatically came forward to my estimate. That's why notes are so handy in the templates. Make it so fast to fill this stuff out. Now my backyard garden, we did that from scratch. So I don't have any notes from here. So here's where I would type in my notes about the backyard garden. Just to make things fast for this video, I'll add some canned notes I already have in my terms and conditions. So I'll go Add Terms and Conditions right here. That'll bring up my list of terms and conditions. Let's say I want to put my planting warranty in this backyard garden. So I'll click the plus button. All the text from my planting warranty terms and conditions gets dropped in my estimate there. Great, now we can move on to crew notes. So this is where I would set up notes for the crew. Under the backyard patio, I already have these. Again, came from the template. So when my crew goes to do this job, they'll have their tool checklist and their install specs. For the backyard garden, I don't have any because I did that one from scratch, but here's where I might type into the crew where they're getting the plants or where to stage plants or any other notes I may want to have for that garden going here. Next, you've got the analysis tab. That'll sort of break down your profitability on the estimate. Price, cost of goods, overhead being recovered, what your break even is, what your net profit is, where your revenue is getting dispersed on this job, what you're spending in labor, equipment, materials, your gross and net profit, how this estimate does compare to the budget, and then some other handy numbers that we'll get into when we talk more advanced. But there's your analysis of exactly how much you're making on this job. And it happened almost by itself. All you did was add the stuff that you needed in the estimate. Now, finally, you're going to want to print the customer a proposal. So we're going to go to the print, and we're going to pick the proposal. There's lots of different proposal layouts that show more or less information, depending on how you like to present information to a client. I'm just going to use our default, which is the customer proposal. We're going to output it as a PDF, so we'll hit print. And what's going to happen now, this estimate that we just built is going to come out as a PDF for the client. Backyard garden, price. There's all our plant warranty, terms and conditions. Backyard patio, price. There's all our description of the backyard patio. Subtotal, taxes, estimate total, and then all my default terms and conditions that I chose to include in my standard estimates when we set up the terms and conditions video. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch the terms and conditions video under the estimating menu. It'll cover how to get all your contract lingo in there. But now you've got something that you can email to client. Now I could save this proposal or I could email it directly to my client from there. Now, if the client wants more or less information, let's say the client says, well, we like your price, but somebody else is cheaper. We can go in here, for example, and say client proposal, show materials. So it's going to be same thing, a customer proposal, but show a little more information. Here's my backyard garden and the price. And notice this time, now it breaks down a list of the materials we're installing. May help you differentiate your price against somebody else who's pricing work by the seat of their pants. So now at least your client knows exactly what they're getting. And if you need to use that, it's a tool in your toolbox that you can pull out at any time. So once you've got a client the proposal, let's say you win the job, now your crew's got to start working or operations has got to start managing this job. So we can go to report and print something like job planner. And what a job planner is a list of all the things that we need to get this job done right on time. Backyard garden, estimate versus actual hours. If you want, they can write in the actual there, but most people are using LMN time now, so that'll all happen on the app. Crew, equipment, materials required. Same thing with the backyard patio. But the backyard patio, we have the tool checklist, we have the installation specs, and we have exactly how long, what equipment, and all the materials we estimated for that particular project, all set up for the crew. And all of this stuff took us only a couple of minutes to set up when we're estimating. So huge time savers, tons more reports that we didn't even get into, estimated job cost reports, estimate review, profitability, we can do purchase orders, all that kind of stuff available right there for you. But that's the basics of how to build a standard estimate. Most of the work happened here. Add a work area. Once you have a work area, that's a subtotal. Simply add crews and equipment and materials to that. That'll build your pricing. You can change that at any time. And when you're ready, hit the print button and you're ready to start generating proposals for your clients. Now that video is just an overview of the basics. And I'm pretty sure you're going to have more questions about estimating as you get into it. Check out golmn.com/help. There's tons more videos on things like changing your taxes, overriding your pricing, and lots of handy tips and shortcuts that you can use. But if you're still trying to find information that you can't get your head around, please reach out to us. We're really happy to help because we know once you understand how to build estimates, it's easy after that. Trust us, the first 10 are always a little tricky, but after you do 10, you're going to know enough to just keep repeating that process. Once you learn how to build an estimate, it's just the same thing over and over again for different clients with different materials. Reach us at live chat or hit us up at advice@golmn.com. If you want any further help on building an estimate, we're there for you, and we can't wait to help you price work quickly and profitably. Thanks for joining us.